The Brewtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Starving Artist Brewing. Starving Artist Brewing may be a small speck on Michigan's beer map, but they say big things come in small packages. A brewery who really puts their money where their mouth is, supporting underground artists far and wide. Making delicious beers with the simple belief that you should judge beer, not people. Brewtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brewtally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is the returning TJ Miller. You probably know TJ from Still Remains. He's also now in Glassfields, as well as his newer project, Dead Me. And this was one where, interestingly, TJ's kind of circling a lot of things I've been doing in a peripheral sense. A lot of times, with the podcast page and so forth, or even my own personal, social media pages, he'll be one of the first people to like or comment on something. And it actually was really interesting because I've been talking about the new podcast that I'm doing with some friends. I don't think I've really mentioned what it is. But at this point, it's between one of my good friends and my tattoo artist, who's also been a really good friend for, I think almost 20 years at this point between the two of them. And it's a thing where we really just kind of have a discussion about things. I mean, it's not entirely different from what I do here, but in some facets, it's entirely different. Some of the things that the three of us are all opening up about. And in one of the conversations that we had, we were talking about the devaluation of music and art. Something, obviously, if you've listened to a bunch of the podcast episodes here, it's something I've talked about after reading the book about how the Wu-Tang album was made in secrecy, and how the RZA and the powers that be behind the scenes ended up deciding to make this one-of-one album, and why it was important to make this one-of-one album for the sake of having music be discussed, put in the same breath as art, like a painting, a one-of-one. And so we started talking about the idea of things being devalued just in our lives and so forth. And at one point, I had turned the conversation to, Chris, obviously, as he gets more along and more successful in technique and skill and all that of tattooing, obviously having to change prices and stuff like that, and how hard is it to navigate not devaluing yourself in your own business, even doing it for me with the podcast when coming up with podcast sponsors and so on and so forth. And Rush, with some of the various things he does as well. And in the conversation, I had talked about how I had booked a show a long time ago with TJ doing a Deftones tribute show. And at the time, there was a little bit of hesitancy, and I don't even want to say hesitancy necessarily. There was on my end. I didn't want to use the Still Remains name. The venue that I booked it at, it was my first show, not at in my house or a house venue. And so I was kind of leaning on them quite a bit to further explore how to properly go from a basement show to putting on something in a actual legit venue. And so we kind of had a little bit of a back and forth disagreement about, should I use the Still Remains name? I didn't think it was worth it because it's not Still Remains, and I don't think anyone who would see Still Remains name would give a shit because it's a Deftones thing, and Still Remains has nothing to do with Deftones, and all these kind of things. And it just was this thing where as we were discussing it, TJ and I had to have the awkward discussion of, if you use my band name, I think you owe me more. The guy is, because there was, I think AJ was the other person from Still Remains that was doing this cover set with TJ. And that it was a thing of, well, that name holds a certain, value. It's intellectual property. It's, it literally is the, I guess, embodiment of all the sacrifices I've had to make, the years of building that name up and the sacrifices of not being home and all those things. And it created a really interesting conversation between TJ and I. And it became a thing where I never resented him, ever. I never was like, you're a dick for doing that. I totally understood where it was coming from. I just felt like I was put in a really awkward position because I'm trying to do something to be successful. Obviously, when you're booking a show at a legit venue, now there's overhead costs, there's all these things associated, and you want it to be successful. So from that perspective, I'm kind of being steered in a few different ways and directions, not really doing something as I would want it to be done, because it's not really how I feel would be beneficial. And so we were talking about that during the podcast chat, and TJ had commented when I had posted a quick little video of like doing this new thing, and he's like, oh, I'd really like to be in that room. And I had mentioned, I was like, oh, we were actually just talking about you. And so it was interesting, and you'll kind of hear us sort of talking about it a little bit in this conversation, but I kind of want to delve a little bit deeper into it because I had the opportunity to do such from a different perspective. I mean, at that point, it's been over 10 plus years since that show. And I would like to think that, and I know it to be true, but that TJ and I are two totally different people at this point. Both now are married. We have done so many things in our personal lives that have made us entirely different people. But I think something that's interesting about wanting to have a conversation with TJ now is that we are in different headspaces. We aren't kind of holding on to ego is the only word that comes to mind, and I don't know if it's more ego on my side or ego on his, but I know that we are essentially both egoless at this point. And it becomes this thing where I feel like there's a little bit of a new understanding of who each other are, because TJ is more known for Still Remains, even though Still Remains isn't really doing anything, but it doesn't negate that he is that person, and all of those experiences have made him who he is now. However, I do find there to be such a similarity between the two of us, where he's got Glassfields that he's working on, and obviously Dead Me, which was starting to be a solo thing and now has turned into a bit of a band, a full-on band. And so it's this thing where, I have this podcast and it's mine, and it's a thing where I have grown it, and it is the successes, failures, whatever it is, are 100% mine. But I've also since, in the last couple of years, started 2 other podcasts at this point. And it's a thing where, I'm doing the Green Room podcast with Corey from God Forbid and Jackie, who does a lot of stuff in the behind the scenes of working with labels and so forth, and a lot of press stuff. And that show's kind of been on the back burner for a little bit, just because life has been getting in the way for everybody. Jackie's been traveling a bunch. Corey had to move back home to the East Coast from Vegas. I've just been busy doing stuff. So, I'm looking forward to getting back into that. But that show, so far where we're at, probably 5 or 6 episodes into that one, and both these new shows are going to be a seasonal format. But it's a thing where I kind of take a backseat to Corey and Jackie in that one. And, just kind of add my little quips here and there and my experiences here and there. And it's interesting to kind of really take such a backseat to something in a creative endeavor and just kind of follow somebody. Whereas with what we are pretty much calling the Bar podcast, the one I'm doing with Chris and Rush, which stands for Banter, Anecdotes, and Recollections, it is essentially 3 really good friends who have known each other for a very long time, having pretty honest and raw conversations. I was kind of a little bit more behind the scenes kind of stuff, but I think it does lend to the conversation I had with TJ. We were looking at licensing a song through a Trustkill artist, and got permission to use it, but when it came time to use it for the YouTube version, there was a little bit more of a legality to everything and a cost associated with it. And so it just became this thing where we weren't really sure that if we were going to spend this kind of money on something, perhaps we'd rather just have a song be made for us and it's ours to use indefinitely. And so that inspired the idea of sending the music out, or actually I should say the podcasts out to Tom from formerly of A Day to Remember, now of Sounds Like Color, because I realized I know enough people in this industry that I could probably have them create something for us and we can pay them for the song and it's ours. And I just sent the episodes out to Tom because instead of going, here's a song, here's what I'm thinking, Chris Rush and I all decided to have him listen to the show and come up with something he thinks represents in sound the podcast. And he and I were texting back and forth a little bit today, and it was a thing where it's like, I'm really nervous for you to hear this because you're the first person to hear these episodes. I have listened to them after we get done with them just to make sure they sound good, what I need to do to clean up anything if I need to on the audio side. But it's a thing. I was texting Tom and I just go, I'm really nervous because you're the first person to hear this. And I don't know. I feel good about it, but now it's going out to somebody else to be judged. And it feels very vulnerable. The things that the three of us discuss in these things, we've known each other a long time and we get very vulnerable at times in almost every episode. And there are things that even people who have been listening to this show, if you have been the entirety of the show, all 7 years, 400 plus episodes, I think in the Bar podcast, I think you will even hear things that you've not heard me discuss. And it's scary. It's close to having a demo, I think, as I have ever been. But I'm excited. I'm excited to get it out. And I think the way it all ties to TJ is I have these 3 different shows now that kind of focus and showcase a different facet of who I am. Not necessarily compartmentalization of my life, but they paint, I think, a fuller picture of me. As I've talked about on this podcast about having roles and the roles that we play, I think that these podcasts essentially relay that and showcase it in a way different way than I could ever articulate. And to me, I think that's what's interesting right now with where TJ's at in a professional creative setting. Still Remains is obviously what he will always be known for, I think, by and large, and that's fine. But I think the thing is Still Remains can grow to be something for TJ, an outlet, and now I think he has other outlets to showcase and vocalize, literally and figuratively, different sides of him that he hasn't been able to showcase in Still Remains and what it kind of limits him to do and be. And so in that capacity, I think it's really interesting to have this conversation with TJ now because he and I share a very similar outlook on something of we understand that this thing can be something and it doesn't have to be limiting, and we don't have to look at it as a limiting outlet, but that it can be something that allows us to channel this one thing and play this role and kind of exercise this thing. And then we have these other outlets that allow us to do the same thing. And so for that, I think this was a conversation that genuinely and organically happened when it was supposed to. And I'm really excited to bring this conversation with TJ Miller to you. So without further ado, here is my conversation with TJ, and I will talk to you on the other side of it. So this is kind of fun and interesting in the fact that I don't think I've gone to anyone else's house.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's sort of, I think, like when you start a journey of something in a quote unquote creative endeavor, I feel like it just starts this whole thing of like firsts and you have no idea where it's going to take you. Like literally right before I hit record, I wanted to look up to see when you had been on the show last, and you were the 13th episode. So unlucky or lucky 13? I don't know.
Yeah, lucky, unlucky, yeah, both. Either, whatever.
And then, it was 2017, so I feel like just so much has happened. And it's funny to think that there used to be a time where I didn't want to have repeat guests because I was like, we covered everything the first time. Yeah. And I feel like it's more interesting from a personal and person perspective of talking to people and continuing a conversation and just seeing how like we've grown, things that have happened over the course of however long it's been, and sort of continuing a story of sorts. I feel like last time you literally had nothing. I don't think. I don't think you had any bands. I don't think Stilly was doing anything.
Yeah. Back then we did like a. I can't remember if it was 17 or 19. I think it was 17. We did like a UK tour, like 9 shows, but that was it. And that's really, we've done like a show or 2 since then, So, like, there wasn't really much going on back then at all.
I haven't listened to the episode because like I don't really do that a whole lot typically, but it would be interesting because I feel like when we talked last, you were very, I don't want to say standoffish. I just feel like you were very like checked out of like wanting to create. Like I feel like, and this will I guess kind of be the first question, but I feel like you were kind of burned by everything or burned out maybe.
Yeah, I think I was for a long time, and it's kind of unfortunate because I feel like, there's so much happening now that's amazing, but it's like I checked out of music for about 10 years. Like I didn't listen to bands, like nothing new. Like still to this day, I'm paying to the price because I have no clue who like anybody is in the scene. Like I just no idea. So yeah, I think I kind of had like a lot of feelings of resentment just toward certain things that happened with Still Remains. Not necessarily like the guys in the band. Maybe, there's always complicated like relationships, that we have and whatever, but they're my bros. It's complicated, but I love them. A lot of it had to do with like management, label stuff, just decisions that were made out of our control, that kind of determined the course of our career and whatever. And so I just kind of just checked out as like, I just don't want to think about it. I don't want to go through it again. I just want to wash my hands of it.
Well, I feel like, and I don't know if I said this to you, but I feel like it's, again, more like the human side of things that I always find intriguing. But I feel like at that point, like, it almost feels like maybe it's like a betrayal, right? Like, how would you not look at it as such? Where you're like, I gave this thing. Literally, I am giving myself. I gave my time, I gave my health. I put everything I have into this thing, and it didn't love me back for no real, like, fault of my own.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely some of those feelings wrapped up in there, too. When this thing comes of you, like Jordan and I really started that band all, back in like 2001. And, we poured all of ourselves into it, and just, there was a lot of good that happened. There was a lot of like weird and bad that happened, but it didn't really like, it didn't go where we felt it should have went, or like should have went, but like we knew that it was capable of going. We knew that without having ego about it, like we knew that we were solid, and we knew that we had like tons of potential, and we wanted certain things to happen. And unfortunately, the team that ultimately we chose to work with, we feel like just kind of dropped the ball in the band pretty bad.
Is it, because I know I remember when we were talking last time, I kind of was really interested in like what does it look like when you're having to kind of start anew after you've kind of left a career? Because at the time, I don't think I even realized like how much touring really preps you for a lot of other things. Like you could become an accountant, you learn how to do like so many logistics and planning ahead and like doing all this stuff, that it really does have tangible job experience. You just kind of have to look at it in a different way. Yeah. And so I remember kind of being focused more on that with you, but I would almost now that we have like 5 years on the other side of it, where it's like, I feel like, and I wonder, I guess, if coming back and like, because like now you're in 2 different bands essentially, like you've started, I don't know if it's your solo thing, because I think initially when you started it off, like it was, but now it seems like Matt and a few other people are involved, so I don't know if it's morphed into another band or if it's still a solo thing.
Dead Me is, it's kind of both. We consider it like I guess we consider it a band. I guess I kind of sit in the driver's seat. the demos that are coming about, you know, were all written by myself. And I just, you know, I've been taking them to Matt and revamping them with Matt, and he's had a lot of incredible ideas. And then same thing with Jordan. Jordan adds certain layers that I never would have like imagined. You know what I mean? And they've just really helped me bring it to life. So it's considered a band at this point, but I think just the three of us have a good dynamic for how we create. That I'm not ready to like open that door for anybody else. You know what I mean? But what I'm hoping is that next year we'll be able to play live, and we've got just a ton of friends that have just been like, hey, like I'll play guitar and, you know, do backups, or I'll play bass if you need, like whatever you need, you know, or I'll play synth, whatever. We've just got like a slew of people that are willing to like help out with the live element.
And then obviously with Glassfields, like I feel like I remember that band existing before you, and then you joined them because they were an instrumental band previously, right?
Here's the thing about Glassfields, like I don't really know much of the history of Glassfield before me. I know that I feel like that they were kind of instrumental, but then Ryan's brother Nick, who's in Fidakin, he plays bass in Fidakin, he was singing for a while too. And then Nick didn't want to sing. He didn't want to play guitar. I think he just wanted to focus on playing bass and like yelling and Fidakin, which is awesome because they're sick. They're just great. But so they asked me to come aboard, and just kind of I was helping writing for a bit, and just thinking about like how I wanted to approach things vocally. But then the pandemic happened, and we kept trying to get together, and it was like the 6-month period where like every week we were trying to get together, and it would always just, our jams would always get canceled for one reason or the other. And so after like 6 months, I just told the guys like, hey guys, I'm setting aside time every week for this, and it keeps not happening. And so I think I just need to kind of check myself out of it, because I mean, I'd rather donate my time to, you know, something that's going to happen. And so I walked away from it, but then the guys ended up going to, guys and gal, went out to Albini's studio in Chicago, and they were, see, I keep burping, I'm sorry. They recorded, I don't know how many songs they recorded, maybe like 8 or 9 songs out there, just instrumental. And they hit me back up, and they were like, hey, we would still really like you to sing on a couple tracks. And I was like, yeah, if you guys got the songs, great. You know, like something's happening. Like, I'll totally do whatever you want me to do. And so I sang one of them, and then they were like, you want to sing on like 3 or 4? And I was like, yeah. So then I recorded more, and now Ryan's talking about me singing on more of them. And yeah, so I guess I'm kind of the singer for Glassfield at this point.
Yeah, because it was interesting. Like I saw their van broke down or whatever on a tour, but I was like, wait, I don't think you're on that.
No.
So
they haven't toured forever, so I don't know if that was them or.
I don't know, because I feel like because like it's social media is weird now, where it's like sometimes if you like literally stop and look at something, it'll just put that or more of things like it, and it'll be like, well, because you interact, and it's like I didn't interact, I stopped for a second.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if maybe like it's just like, because I follow you and you're associated to that account in some way, shape, or form, maybe it throws some of their stuff and it's like older things just to get me to click. I don't know.
Yeah, it could.
But be. I thought I remember seeing something about like, oh, our like van broke down and we're stuck, and or maybe it was like they used that page as an ancillary thing for you know, what's his face's other band. So I don't know. I just remember just being like, oh, that's weird. I thought TJ was in that band, but they're touring and he's not touring.
Yeah, no, that wasn't anything recent. I don't think it must have been years ago.
Okay. Shows how much I actually pay attention to social media.
It's Glassfield's been a fun thing, though. I mean, it really has been. I mean, I love Matt and Britt, and I love Ryan a lot. Ryan and I went to high school together at Granville, and the music's just been super cool. Way different than anything that I've ever been a part of. But what I'm doing vocally is totally working. It's weird. It's really weird how it's coming together, but it's way cool.
Well, I think that's like the interesting thing about the 3 bands so far is like even today listening, or when you dropped the demo, the Dead Me stuff, and I was like, oh, it's It's funny because like the first thing I thought of was I was like, oh, TJ pulling out like a Lane Staley, Allison Chain like vocal harmony on
That's
this.
what people
Like,
keep saying on that. That's so funny.
and well, I think it's just like there's a certain vocal frequency that when you do a harmonizing like melody line behind it, like it's just there's no way you can't compare it. Like I remember watching that Stained when they did their last album, they did like a documentary of them making the whole record, which is one of the most hardest things to watch because there's so much band drama and it's being captured on film. Yeah, and it's like they kicked out John, their old drummer, and like Aaron's like giving him shit. He's like, you can't like listen how sloppy that is. You're not even on the fucking beat. Like da da da, and you're like, okay. And then like he'll go to Mike and be like, and you can tell that they weren't working together. Like they had different sessions, and so like it'd be like Aaron'd be like, oh, you know, it'd be really cool. Like if I rapped over this, like Mike should go back over re-record his guitar parts to fit this other thing I want to do. And then Mike's like, oh, he wants me to re-record my fucking part. Why don't you like? And you're just like, man, this is so fucking awkward. Like it's like literally watching band fighting, like committed to tape and then put out for like our enjoyment. And you're just like, but I mean, that's really what it is. But at one point, he's doing a vocal idea or whatever, and he came up with something, and it showed like Mike and the other dudes just like, oh, it's just an Alice in Chains thing. That's all anyone's gonna hear. They're just gonna be like, oh, it's an Alice in Chains ripoff. And then Aaron's like, so what? I can't fucking have like this high harmony and this one underneath it. Like Alice in Chains owns it forever. Like no one can ever do it. Yeah. And it's one of those where I'm like, no, I see that, but it is a thing where it's like I think there is just tonally a thing that if you listen to that band, you're always going to hear like when you hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I remember. So I mean, here's the thing: like Alice in Chains, you know, Lane and Jerry were like the masters of vocal harmonies, and you know, Mike and I did that a lot in Still Remains. We were just always harmonizing. We were both choir kids. You know, so we both love to sing. We love to harmonize. I mean, I'm doing a bit of that with Dead Me. I'm doing a little bit of that with Glassfield too, and I think it's just my nature really. I can say that like while Alice in Chains is certainly one of my favorite bands, I don't like intentionally try to pull like inspiration from them necessarily. But the thing is like with vocals, it's where I go, you know, just to, I mean, when I'm listening to like, you know, the music of or a demo of something that, you know, I've written or somebody else has written, I have to just like listen to what that song is telling me. Like it tells me what it needs, literally. If I just like churn it over and over and over in my head, I was doing it yesterday. I brought my kid to the trampoline park down the road and I just threw my headphones on while he was jumping around and just wanted to listen to that song, literally just listen, like turn my brain off and listen. And it tells me like, this is the vibe of this part. This is what, you know, it needs to be effective. And then I'll go home and go, all right, cool. That's my starting point. You know, just even if it's not even like the first part of the song, it's like, in this case, it was the end of the song. That's where I started recording, and I knew the kind of like vibe I had to use my voice, and I knew that I had to have at least like a harmony on it in order for it to be effective. And as far as guitar stuff goes, like I'm not a shredder whatsoever. Like I suck at guitar, and so like most of the things that I write are simple. You know, very simple stuff. Like, I mean, so I've heard a couple of people go like, yeah, guitar stuff is kind of like Jerry, you know, like Jerry Cantrell. I'm like, because he writes a lot of simple-ish guitar stuff. I mean, he's a great guitar player though, but a lot of his stuff in Alice in Chains is fairly simple.
It's odd time though. It's like not. It's either like off the beat or in front of it. It's like never like right on it.
Yeah.
So it's really weird when you're like trying to, even when trying to like learn some of his stuff. It'll be like you're like, okay, it should go here. Should be the chord. Oh no! I gotta go just slightly before it. It's very weird. You gotta like be paying attention.
Yeah,
it's a feel.
But like I don't like he's not. I mean, I love his guitar stuff. It's great, but it's not. He's not somebody that I'm going like I want to play like Jerry. You know what I mean? So I do get a lot of like the Alice in Chains like comments about Dead Me, and I think it's really really cool. It's interesting, you know, but it's not where I'm going, and it's not really what I'm pulling from. But it's really cool how people can hear that.
Well, I think like I think it speaks to a bigger thing of sometimes I think like our influences come out unbeknownst to us. Like you might hear it or just be like, oh, I don't know, I just thought it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And you know, it's sort of like the same thing with guitar playing. It's like, well, I mean, there's only so many notes, so many ideas, and like certain ones just aren't going to work there, and I can try and I can show you all the bad versions of what I did and it doesn't work and it doesn't sound good. But I think adversely, I think when we listen to something, that's what we do by nature, is just try to compare it to something we know, to give it like a common foundation of like, okay, now I like this, so now let's kind of dive into it a little more. I thought it was more interesting because it's like I wouldn't have really thought to like those vocals in particular, like those harmony vocals. I was like, I don't think I would have thought to put that over this. And that was the thing to me that made it stand out a little bit more, is I was like, I wouldn't have expect like there's kind of where I thought it was going to go, and then that part comes in and I was like, huh, I think that's a better idea. It's unexpected. It kind of is more memorable and makes that part more memorable. But it's I'm like I hate when people are like, you want to like, can I show you the new thing I'm working on, or can I play a new, like, I remember when Andrew from the Ghost Inside had just gotten their like record, like he had gotten the final mix the day we were doing the podcast. And so he's like, we're listening to it loud as shit on his like home studio thing. And like, we're listening to one of the songs. He's like, yeah, so like, this is going to be like our first single. And I was like, all right. And then like, he plays like sort of like a radio rock thing. He's like, yeah, we're going to like send this one out. I think we're going to do this one after like the first single. And I was like, and then like, they had like just an ass beater song. And I was like, so those are going to be the singles? He goes, yeah. I go, I think I would maybe release them like, I don't think I'd put the like soft song second, because like I think people might think that that's what the rest of the record's going to be like. And I understand like then you come with the walloping track too, so I understand it. But I was like, I don't know. I feel like people are not gonna vibe. Like I think it.
So
I think
many bands have done that, and so they're like, okay, we know what you're doing.
Right.
We see you.
Yeah, and it just. But I also hate it because like when I hear something, I'm like, oh, that's cool, or like I'm like, oh, usually you did this part, like usually it would lead to like a bridge, or it would do this here, and then. But I also hate like when, because like as I'm listening to it, I'm just like, sometimes I will sort of like you're saying, when you listen to music, I just kind of sit there and zone out and be like, all right, that's kind of cool. All right, like tones, drums, like what am I picking up? But I feel like when you're sitting there with the person who has a hand in creating it, they're like looking for your like, isn't it awesome? And you're like, oh yeah, I don't like who talks when you're listening to something for the first time. It's very weird. And then like something like that where it's like it's the final version. There's no going back and changing it. It's like if you're like, I didn't really like that, and it's like, well, fuck you, we're done with it. It exists now, and this is how it's gonna be. Yep. Like I'm just not a fan of doing that. Like I like to be more alone and listen to stuff, and then be like, so here's my thing. Like I remember Hafer sent me something, and then he was like, what'd you think? He goes, oh, it's been like a few hours and nothing back. Like you hate it, don't you? And I was like, I honestly am at work and I haven't listened to it. Yeah. But like it's one of those where it's like I feel like it's a little bit daunting to be the person everyone's like, you like good music, here, listen to this and tell me what you think. No, and you're like, oh.
That's kind of funny because I mean I think from an artist standpoint, like I get that with Hafer. I do it all the time. Like, hey dude, check this out, and then I'm like, crickets, and you know. I know that they've got their own lives and they'll listen to it on their own time. But me, I'm like in the moment and I'm so excited about my shit and I just want somebody else to like be able to share that with me. And when it doesn't come back for like a few hours, you're just kind of going like, oh, fuck that guy. He probably hates it. You know?
Well, I feel like, actually it's funny because I feel like it's almost akin to something Bentley and I were talking about yesterday, where, we were kind of talking about setting boundaries with people and, the power of no and things like that. And it is, but like we were talking about, like sometimes we live in this world now where because of our phones getting notifications, like I'm someone that like when I get something, like I don't like notifications on my phone. Like it feels like I'm ignoring shit or putting things off. But another way that we were kind of talking about it is we have been kind of conditioned to complete tasks. So when you see a notification, it almost is like a task, and you're like, oh, I have to do that. I have to get that thing to go away.
Yes.
And so the other side of it that we were talking about yesterday was that sometimes we live in such an instantaneous world where everything is like, well, like we're talking right now, like you didn't listen to it, you didn't like it, and it's like, no, like
you need to satisfy my dopamine.
Right, but like the other side of it is sometimes you need to like not have people be so like connected to you, like stop, like sit, like, and we were talking more about like if someone said something and you're like, well, and like that's arguments get started because you're just too quick to be in the moment and say something, and it's like sometimes when someone poses a question or does whatever, it's best to like just kind of not answer it, let them kind of either realize that like you don't, like you're not at their beck and call at all times, but also sometimes it helps that person kind of reflect inwardly and be like, oh, I'm sorry I bothered you with this or whatever like that looks like. And I'm kind of really paraphrasing like a 40-minute conversation to like 2 minutes, but I think the same thing sort of can maybe apply from a creative standpoint, where it's like maybe by you sending something out, you're very excited about it in the moment, but maybe there's something in that like hours long process of waiting for someone to, or whenever they get back to you, where you go, now I think about it, maybe I should change this, or maybe I should, and it like gives you time to reflect and think maybe about something else you could do or want to do to the thing.
No, for sure. It's funny because like I'll track just like one part, and I'll be like, dude, you got to hear this, and I'll send it out, and I'm just so excited about it because I ended up getting my idea out, like I got a good vocal take, whatever. But the thing is what you're sending somebody is a completely incomplete idea. It's not mixed. Honestly, like sonically, sounds like absolute shit. And you're expecting somebody to come back and be like, dude, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard, Yeah.
Well, I think it speaks to like you said, it's from thought to, I don't want to say completion because it's not complete, but it's essentially like human alchemy. It's like lightning in a bottle. Like you captured a moment. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's hard not to be excited. I feel like at times, like, even doing this, because, like, and it's weird because I'm starting to finally get in the I don't want to say habit, but, like, just training myself to understand that this is sort of a creative thing in some way, shape, or form. I used to say all the time, like, I remember Porter once was like, you have, like, a really innate gift to get people, like, to talk to people. Like, it's not something everyone can do. And I go, fucking talking, communicating, everyone can do it. Like, I don't think it's a skill.
I think it is.
I'm starting to realize that as I've been doing this for like 7 years now. But it's like there are times like, I did a chat with Scotty and Lewis from Carnifex, and like we just kind of talked about like death and like how it informs how you live your life and different things. And like when I got done, I was like, fuck, man, that was awesome. I can't. And I did the same thing. I sent it to a couple people. I was like, yo, check this chat out. It was fucking awesome. And then I realized I'm like, who wants to listen to me and some other dude talk for an hour?
Before it's released.
Before it's released. Like, I'm like, no one cares.
No, I get that. I mean, it's no offense to you.
No.
But, like, I totally get that side of it.
Well, it's almost like, I feel like, in a different realm, because, like, that was sort of like we were saying earlier about, like, the thing I'm doing with Chris and Rush. And I feel like their expectation, oh, man, like, some people are going to listen to it. And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know. Have you ever done anything creative? Because, like, the people that you think are going to, like, support your thing fucking aren't. Like, I think my wife's maybe listened to 2 episodes out of the 400 plus I've done. She doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. I feel like in band stuff, I feel like you're probably the same, where it's like, you want to get humbled real quick? Look around and see that, like, no one in your close circle of friends gives a shit. Like, there was someone who I'm not going to mention, but I saw on their Instagram story a couple of weeks ago, they had posted about, like, a photo and like there's a business that they had opened during the pandemic and then it didn't succeed. And toward the end, he was like, the person was just like, and you know what? Like, I knew because no one showed out. Fuck this part of town. Fuck like people like blah blah blah. And I want to be like, dude, like you used to be the man. Like you of all people should understand. Like no one's gonna give a fuck about your thing, no matter how much you give a fuck about it. Like you were saying earlier, like to start off, like you didn't listen to music for like 10 years. Like you kind of were checked out of things. I went through the same thing through doing this, where I got tired of every album I get, like, and I get bombarded with them, that it's like, I have to listen to it. And it became like a fucking job where I'm listening to music for the sake of going, okay, what's the cool thing I can talk about to somebody from this band? And it's also not repetitive of whatever anybody else during this press junket that they're going to be asked a million times. And so it just got to be fucking overwhelming, and I just hated it. And like, it made me not want to listen to music at all, and I didn't. And then it took a while, but I found my why. And so when I saw that person's thing, I just really wanted to like message them and be like, no, you like, if you don't do it for you, it has to start with you. You have to know, like, what is the purpose? Why? What is your why? Why are you doing it? Yeah. And if it isn't only for you, then you of all people should know that, like, you can't make anyone do anything. Right. It has to be for you.
Right. No, it's something that, I mean, it's kind of a similar idea as especially with the Dead Me stuff, because it's in its infantile stages. I don't have like a label involved or like a PR or anything like that to like push press or anything like that. I can post about it all I want. I can share it all I want. Ultimately, like, your shit is going to speak for itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's good material, if he's got a good product, it would speak for itself, hopefully. You know what I mean? I mean, I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face, but I can't force anybody to fucking listen to it. I can't force anybody to like it.
And I think at the end of the day, like you were saying, I think you are doing it because you want to.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with anybody else. And I do feel like the interesting thing, too, from kind of thinking about like where it seems you are personally versus where you were last time we talked, is that I feel like, and I'm projecting, but I feel like you, from when we talked last time, would have, if any of these projects didn't do anything, would have been like, oh, fuck the industry and fuck music and fuck people and blah blah blah, and all anyone cares about is TJ Miller still remain. Like, and I feel like there was a clear separation of you as the person versus who everyone thought you were. Yeah. And I feel like now you have the creative outlets to do different facets of yourself. And so if that's how people feel, you're like, fine. I mean, I exist in that plane too, but I'm also over here. Yeah, and there's an understanding, like you've kind of come full circle, it seems, as a person, where you can be like, yes, I am that person. And if that's all you want me for, cool, that exists over here. However, I also am multifaceted and I exist in these spaces as well.
I think some of that is just gaining confidence in myself. And unfortunately, like, you know, it's to the point where I'm 41 years old and I'm starting to gain more confidence in myself. And I just never really had much of that. You know what I mean? So, like, when I was just doing Still Remains or whatever, or not doing Still Remains, but that's all people wanted to like talk about or think about if they were in a room with me or whatever. It's just disappointing because it's just like, that's just not me. That's just not me.
It is, but it's a part.
It's a part. It's a part of me for sure. But like, if that's all you can see, and you want to treat me a certain way, that's not really like a normal person.
No.
You know, like I'm just not. I don't really have the energy to like sit there. But, you know, now that like, I mean, Still Remains is kind of one thing. I'm doing well in my job. I got married. I'm got these other musical projects that I've got a lot of confidence in. And I feel like I can just be my fucking self and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Like, if you look at me and you see the one thing, like, I just don't care. Like, I feel like I'm finding myself more.
Well, I feel like the weird thing is when people do that, it's so weird to, again, this is why, like, I love working in a bar and working as a door guy. Just really makes you look at people completely differently, because it's sort of like being at a club where it's like, if I had talked every night over all the fucking volume in a bar, I'd have no voice like most of the week. So I just, a lot of times, just sit there and be quiet. And when you see how people interact with one another, and you see, like, you get really a broader sense of like people and how we are and stuff like that. The way, like, what you're describing to me just sounds like if you were to explain to somebody, like, you're just seeing someone in a one-dimensional shape. Like, it's flat, it's substanceless. Like, it's nothing. Yeah, like, sure. People aren't for the most part, people aren't one-dimensional. They're 3D beings. Like, there's so many deep things happening that, like, you have no idea. And, like, you gotta, like, understand that about people. And I guess maybe that's what it is people don't take the time to think outside of themselves, first of all, but secondly, to kind of look at other people in any other capacity. I also would wonder, potentially, this is like probably a really weird parallel, but because I feel like one of your kids does sports, right? Or did?
My daughter does dance.
Okay.
My son Ash doesn't do anything right now, but we might get him like hooked up with soccer this year.
I was gonna say, okay, I remember one of your kids doing something like sort of competitive or that took like practice essentially. Yeah. But I was gonna say, do you feel that seeing them go and learning something essentially from start and gaining the confidence by proximity allowed you to kind of do the same thing?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever really looked at that, honestly. I think that just being away from it for so long, you know, and just life happening as it does, just kind of...
I didn't even mean musically. I just meant like, because you're like, one of the first thing you said in that part, though, was my job's doing, I have a good job.
Yeah.
Like, you started at a job.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, it's like, I feel like the foundational blocks of your life it's probably a family job, whatever. And I would
Yeah,
say
yeah.
music's probably at the bottom of that hierarchy.
It is, yeah.
And so at that point, I feel like my question would be, did you notice that you started gaining confidence in work and yourself and all that through seeing, her?
Maybe. I mean, it's really cool watching your kids like grow and change and discover things every day and seeing their confidence build. You know what I mean? And in ways that is inspiring. Really is. It kind of like, I feel like that probably does help me, with work and with taking on new things and exploring new avenues and things like that.
I feel like the interesting thing would be, I mean, I guess we don't know technically if, proximity begat more inspiration and confidence seeing it. But I would also wonder, have you noticed since kind of taking on a few different projects and having them, just honing the craft, putting in like 10,000 hours kind of a thing, do you see them kind of being more interested in starting kind of a creative hobby at that point through seeing you?
Maybe, yeah. I was thinking about that last night, actually. With my daughter, Harlow, she's 11, and her mother and I are divorced, and but her mom is a makeup artist, and she's going to school for art history and stuff like that. I think she wants to be like an art teacher. And so like between her mother and I, art is huge. You know what I mean? Like I don't sit upstairs and crack a beer and watch the Tigers usually. You know what I mean? Like I will come down here, turn on my laptop and scream into a microphone or sing into a microphone. And I mean, she's upstairs reading and she's drawing and painting and she's, I mean, I know it's kind of a young age, but she's getting really into like makeup, and she does makeup for like events and things like that on herself, and she looks beautiful. Like she's extremely talented. She's really into music, more so into like rock music instead of the pop things that she gets over at her mom's house. But I see her evolving into this little artist, which is super cool. Whichever avenue she wants to take it. She does play some piano. She's interested in playing the drums. She's going to start playing violin this year at school in orchestra. So I'm super proud of her for just like following these little like artistic ambitions that she has. I think that stuff will actually blossom for her as she comes into her teenage years.
I always think it's kind of interesting because it feels like at times like doing, like I remember like talking to Brian from Shadows Fall, and like they were doing a reunion show like I think like last year or whatever. Yeah. And it was funny because his kids are at the age now where like they can go, they understand like this is daddy's doing this thing. And so he was really excited to kind of share this old life that he doesn't really do with family now and kind of marry the two. And so, like, especially with the Haste Today reunion show that you guys are going to be a part of, was it next month?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, your kids are at the age now where it's like they'll have cognitive memories of seeing you do that.
Yep.
I think it's one of the, I'm trying to remember the last time you guys did one.
A show?
Yeah, I don't think Ash would have been born yet, and she would have probably been like, what, 5 or 6 maybe?
Yeah, like our kids have not seen me play before, ever, in any capacity at all. Actually, she's been to a couple Still Remains practices, but it was so loud that she actually sat outside of the room and just kind of played her Nintendo, her Switch. And honestly, these 2 shows we're doing next month, like, I don't think that the kids will be able to go to either of them. They're so far away. And I think that one of them is on the weekend. Like, one of them's on the weekend where Harlow's mom has her. And the New York one we're doing, it's New York. And we're flying, and, like, I'm not going to get her a plane ticket. Like, I can't, it's not like I'm not going to get her one. It's just, I can't afford it right now. You know, money is money. And we just did, like, a family vacation and all that kind of stuff. So if we do a home show, at some point, if Still Remains wants to do a home show, they'll be at that, absolutely, which I hope will happen, within the next half year. I really hope to play a home show, but if the goal is to have both Dead Me and Glassfield playing live next year, and so, I hope that the kids will be able to see those for sure. I think they will.
I think it would just be...
Still Remains is a different animal, though.
Yeah, no,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Bigger shows,
yeah.
Like crowd surfing. They're pretty intense. They're a lot of fun, you know. Whereas like Glassfield and Dead Me are baby bands. Well, I mean, Glassfield's not a baby band. They've been around for a long time, but they don't do like bigger shows and things like that. You know, they're not like a bigger band. So, you know, it'll be cool to see like the dynamic. If the kids can like watch me playing one of those projects and then see a Still Remains show and be like, Dad's got it. Oh yeah, you know what I mean.
I think like it's funny because like for the longest time I thought I wanted kids, and then as you know, after I started getting out of high school and having adult relationships, and like everyone was just like, I don't really want kids, and I was like, I don't think I do either. But it's funny because
It's the same here.
yeah, I was gonna
I
say
love my kids.
I think the thing that's interesting about it, because a lot of people are like, it seems like you want them because you talk about kids' perspective of things, and I go, no, I just find it interesting because like when I was like with an old roommate watching his two kids, like one was an infant up until I think like we lived together until she was like maybe 2. And then his son, like I had been around through most of his life. And I go, it's just interesting to like see how their brains fucking work.
Yeah.
Like I remember his kid, one day we were eating like McDonald's fries and he just like stared at one after he half ate one. And I was like, what's up, buddy? He was like,
Is this a real potato?
no,
No.
This is what he said, and it still like blows my mind. But he goes, are French fries just like a casing for mashed potatoes? And I like looked at it for a second, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's like the most high like thought I've ever heard. But you're not wrong.
Yeah. Are you high?
Yeah. What's in these? Stop eating those.
Did you get Daddy's gummies out?
But it's just interesting to see how like the personality of someone becoming their own person, but then also like I said, like they're just so pure is like the only thing I can think of. They're just so like there's no reason to lie about anything. Sometimes too truthful, but it's just a thing. It's interesting to see things from their perspective because I think along the way we've been so beaten down by a lot of shit and self-doubt and all these things that seeing them just be like
They still have their innocence intact.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
It's destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, like it's gone.
So I think it's interesting to just kind of look at life sometimes, or to remind myself to try to look at life through like a child's eyes and be like, have the wonderment and amazement and just kind of be like, yeah, this is fucking cool, isn't it? Even if it's like not like, I mean, there's been times like going to shows recently where I'm like, oh, thank God this show. Like I needed an escape, like just for a couple hours and like just forgetting like that's what it's for. Like, and that's why it's magical. Yeah. But I think too many of us, like especially now with cell phones, are afraid of like being caught like dancing awkwardly or something, doing something stupid, and being like, "Oh fuck, now I'm a meme."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess like that's kind of an interesting thing because it's been so long since you've done something. Like the whole way of doing everything has changed. Like it's still like it's funny as we're in this room and like there's amps and stuff in corners and all that. This feels normal. Like, but I also feel like at times I don't know that anyone really gets in a room anymore. I feel like everyone's like, all right, send me your files, man. And like, I don't know. I feel like it's the tangible thing of sitting in a room and actually being with everything and having the vibrations and everything. It's not a thing anymore.
It's not. I can say that with the projects that I'm doing, Still Remains still does get in a room right now, but it's often not all of us. So right now, like Jordan and AJ and Zach are trying to get together every couple weeks just to hash out new ideas. They're working on some new stuff. I haven't really heard anything yet. And I haven't been involved because I'm more focused on Dead Me and Glassfield right now. Dead Me has just been like me in my basement, really, just kind of like writing songs in Logic, and then I'll just take them to Matt's studio, like, and then Jordan will meet us there, and that's kind of our band practice. I mean, we're all in a room together, but we don't have the amps on loud, you know what I mean? We're just tracking, and we're hashing it out and talking at like a low volume, you know. Hopefully that will change, actually, by next year. I'm hoping we can get in a room. I mean, because these are all demos anyway. If it gets to the point where we get, like, some label backing or something like that, we can actually, like, afford to produce, like, a great-sounding record. I want to do everything with raw live drums and everything else, and I want that to be based on actually being in a room together, playing things loud and hearing what things need to sound like with just us, like, hashing it out. You know, like these demos, there's a lot of MIDI going on. You know what I mean? There's a ton of extra things in there, and I think that my original vision for this was to do it as raw as possible. You know what I mean? So it kind of like morphed into something that I didn't foresee, but I'm also very happy with. You know, but like I said, they're just demos right I just wanted people to be able to hear what we got going on. I'm just excited. Glassfield gets together. Like, that is all organic, completely organic, getting in a room together and hashing shit out, which is super cool. And you can hear that on the recordings, too. Like, it's raw as fuck. It's really visceral.
I would almost, like, this may not be, it's behind you, charging.
Oh, sorry about that, by the way.
Nope, you're good. I was going to say, I think something that, and there may not even be a, like, story behind it at all, like, not, like, anything deep at all, but, like, I find the idea of Dead Me as a name for a project interesting, and I feel like it can evoke a lot of things, and I don't know if, like, what I would put onto it, of where I think it's coming from.
Go for it.
Is a thing. Oh, I hate doing that, because then, like, I feel like, especially, I try not to read comments on shit, but people are always like, "Dude, let the fucking person talk." So instead of saying what I think, and then you just being like, "Yeah," then it's like, cool. Well, I'm glad I asked the question and then answered it too, and then threw it back to you to be like, yes or no.
You're not going to get this right.
Oh,
but go ahead.
Well, I think, and again, I'm probably projecting based on my personal relationship with you, as minute as it actually is, but I think I feel like maybe it's just it's an outlet for you to almost reverse of what it is, like, that you have been almost awakened to do something now. And Dead Me is sort of like, it was the Dead Me of, like, in a creative sense, I was dead. And it is...
That's really cool. I never thought of it that way.
But again, I feel like I'm projecting based on, like, part of the conversation we had, like, all those years ago, and where it seemed like you were versus where you are now.
It's, so, the Dead Me thing. First, I'll tell you where the name came from. And then I'll tell you what it kind of means to me.
Okay.
Because they're not related.
Okay.
So, I had Josh Stacy over here, who's he's a great friend of mine, and, like, he'll come over. I'll have a few friends over on, like, kidless weekend nights, and we'll play Cards Against Humanity, and we'll have some drinks, or maybe smoke some weed or whatever, and just laugh a bunch. And it's just a pretty innocent, like, adult hang. You know what I mean? Or we'll hit the hot tub and hang out, whatever. And so one night, like, after everybody had left, Josh and I were just hanging out in I call it the theater room. It sounds really bougie. It's not. Like, I live in, like, this 70s, like, tri-level house, and it's pretty compacted. We don't have a lot of open space and whatever, but there was almost like this, like, second living room area, and we painted it all black, and that's where I've got, like, the PS5 and our video games, and that's where we watch movies and stuff like that. So we were just, like, hanging out on the couch. It was super late. We were pretty stoned, and we were watching something on YouTube, and Josh and I are both very ADHD. He's about 10 times more ADHD than I am, and I love him so much. But he was just laying there, and he was just, like, saying random band names, like, that sounds cool, that sounds cool, that sounds cool. And he goes, Dead Me. And I kind of, like, looked over at him, like, shot this look over, and I was like, that's sweet. He was like, yeah, I got to write that down. And then we just went about our night and whatever, and I was kind of at the point where I was thinking about a name for this whole thing. And any of my names I just couldn't really connect to, and I wasn't really stoked, and I hit him up, like, a few days later. It's like, hey, do you remember that name you came up with that you said you wanted to put in your back pocket? And he was like, no, what was it again? And I was like, it was Dead Me. He was like, yeah, that was really cool. I was like, can I use it? Can I have that? And he was like, hell yeah, man. He doesn't give a shit. And so, because for whatever reason, that name, I felt as though just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think that's because, I'm writing these songs and things that I'm dealing with in my personal life. I was raised, well, not raised my entire life, but, like, from an early age, really, really early age, my mom has been an addict, like a major addict. And and I've always known this. I've always known that she was a major addict. But I guess I didn't really understand to what extent it was until very recently, like within these last like few months. And some crazy shit has just happened in my personal life. Right now she's in hospice. But the addict behavior is still, I mean, she's still with it, walking around, whatever. She's like at home hospice, but her addict behavior is like out of control. My grandma was taking care of her, and she had actually just passed like in May. And so it was just a completely bizarre turn of events, and I just felt like all of that and dealing with my own like severe depression at times, I just felt like that's the place I was writing from. Like that's the place where lyrically I'm writing from. I'm writing my true feelings about these things into song form. And musically, I think that vibe resonates. Like I think that my lyrics kind of connect to the vibe of like the things that I'm writing on guitar. And I mean, it's all kind of like slow and sad, and I mean, it's rock. I mean, it can hit hard and whatever, and it can hit you hard, but like the Dead Me, I just kind of felt like that's me. Like Dead Me. I don't know. Like it just felt like it sat in the right spot, and I thought about it for a few days, and I was just like, okay, I think I'm actually going to use this name.
I think what's interesting when you're coming up with something that eventually needs a title of sorts is it's funny because like I went through it with this podcast. Like initially I just couldn't come up with a name, so I just called it like my Untitled Podcast because I was like placeholder name. It's all it is. Yep. Working title.
That's what Still Remains was. The Still Remains was just a placeholder, and then we just never changed it.
Yeah. So I remember like going through, but it's like it became this thing where like there was something kind of nice about having autonomy. Like, what is Johnson's Title Podcast? I don't know. It's untitled. It can be whatever you want it to be. Like there was something kind of that I liked about it. But then, when I ended up getting a co-host, I was like, I feel kind of like a dick having my name and face on it when there's two of us. Like that just feels disingenuous. So we kind of worked together on coming up with a name. I like punny names anyway. So I was like, dude, like usually we like before we record or do something, him and I, like Dan and I would drink beers and shit like that. And I was like, and we'd be like, oh, what are you drinking? Oh, I'm drinking this. Oh man, I'm drinking this. And we'd talk about it. And I was like, and I'd always cut it out because I'm like, no one cares. But then I was like, right. But then it became this thing where I was like, I know the thing, like, because I remember Chris when we were at Mulligan's a long time ago, was just like, you have this gift of like getting people to open up and tell you shit that like they probably wouldn't tell a stranger, but they'll just fucking tell you for some reason. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, like, you know, someone made the comment like, oh, sometimes you get like brutally honest or have like these like brutally like real conversations. So hence Brewtally Speaking with BREW. And so it kind of allowed me to marry two different things. But it's funny that once I got the name, I feel like the show kind of changed and became, I think, more of what it has slowly morphed into through confidence. And honestly, I've said like plenty of times, like I can pinpoint the episode that I had done therapy like for the first time and then did a podcast, and it was totally different. Yeah. And like that was like the moment where I was like, oh shit, I want this to be that. Like if I can have it be like that all the time, awesome. Yeah. But I think it's a thing where until you kind of give something a name, it kind of just, you kind of meander, like, because it doesn't, I don't want to say it confines something, but I think it gives it a defined role of what it's going to be. And I think, you know, for you, like Dead Me obviously means something, and it's like, oh, it finally encapsulates everything I'm doing. Yeah. And I think like it's interesting to see how people get there, because like, I feel like I would wonder if you have stuff that you were working on, and then like now that you have a name for it, you're like, oh, well, this isn't this. This is something else now.
You know, that's interesting, because I have some things that I'm working on where I think it was originally my intent to say, yeah, this is for this project, but now that it's kind of been identified more, you know, it's got its own identity, I'm starting to question a couple of those ideas. Like, do I really want to, you know, do this with this? And part of me doesn't want to like start excluding ideas. Right. Because ultimately, like, I want Dead Me to be a true representation of who I am as an artist. And I don't expect or really desire the songs to all have the same kind of vibe. I just don't. Like, I would say that Empty Now is more of a, I don't know, it's just kind of like a hard rock song, really. I wouldn't call it metal. There's aspects, like some of the screaming stuff, and some of the like really hard drums at the end. But then there's some like really chill Dead Me stuff. But then there's some more violent stuff too, and I think it could all work. I really think it could all work. I think I could get in a room and play acoustically at some point. If I'm not gonna, it's hard to like reach so far and say, like look at what Zeppelin does. You know what I mean? I mean Zeppelin did so many different things. They could play the hard stuff, they could play the slow stuff, they could play the perverted songs and the love songs and they can get in a room with acoustic guitars, they can blast it super loud in an arena, whatever. Like, I would love to be able to do all of that with Dead Me, and just not give a fuck what the song's about, really necessarily what it sounds like, just as long as it's coming from an honest place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But I do have those thoughts, like, should this be for something else?
Yeah, because like it's funny because like even doing this, there's been times where it's like I have a couple episodes like I'll probably never release, like because they're just not up to my standard. Like it felt like something completely different, and I'm like, and for a little while they're up on like Patreon when I was doing one of those. Yeah. I was like, hey, here's these episodes. I'm never going to release them. I might eventually just be like, I don't want to say lazy, but like if I'm on a vacation and I don't feel like posting a new episode, I'll be like, here, just have this one. It just is a thing. Like a tied over thing, like an EP. Well, we're not done with the full length, but here's some shit.
Yeah, here's something that you can just digest for a minute.
It's a Japanese B-side that you didn't hear. Yeah. But it's a thing where at times though I kind of lost my train of thought. I was like thinking of something. But I think the thing that like gets kind of interesting when you do something and you're kind of like have various projects, because like right now, like interestingly, like I'm in the same space, and that's where I was going. So like I did one with Corey from God Forbid, like randomly, like someone on Twitter was like, you should talk to Corey, and I was like, okay, like I know Doc, so sure. So we ended up doing a chat, and then like we just kind of hit it off pretty quickly. And if you know Corey's a talker, very much. Like it's an East Coast thing, I think.
I think I might have met him like years and years ago.
Yeah,
but
you guys
like
did a tour.
We don't have like a tight relationship.
Yeah. And so we started talking, got talking about whatever. I think we were talking about like beating kids. Like, yeah, like sometimes I think like growing up, it's like, my parents would spank me on occasion, and it's like, but I'd still do the bad thing or whatever. And like, sure. Like what does it do? But also like now you can't even do that. So like, I don't know, like weird world we live in and da-da-da. And then like it's sort of like a bonding experience now, like where we say like really fucked up things and shared really fucked up meme. Like, I'm going to show you this one that I sent him yesterday, and I'll explain it on here real quick. And this is actually something I want to talk about on the other podcast I'm doing with Chris and them eventually. Is just kind of like I hate that my brain just goes to like kind of the most fucked up things like immediately because I'm looking for a laugh.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
And so like what kind of sucks after a bit is like, all right, so.
Oh, man.
So what I'm showing TJ is someone had a meme, and it's a DiGiorno pizza that's just burnt to shit. Like, literally, it looks like chocolate. And then it says DiGiorno's new Hawaiian-style pizza, because obviously they're burning. And so, like, it's a thing where, like, Corey and I do shit like that. But, like, at one point, we were talking about something that I'm like, ooh, I know news sites, people listen to my show randomly. And you have like, God forbid, has some like big reunion shows coming up. I don't want to be the culprit of like you getting those pulled over you and I have, you and I just having an actual conversation where we're debating something. And when we're done recording, I'll tell you what we were talking about. But it is something where I understand that like sometimes you can have a conversation with somebody, and I like being able to just throw ideas out there, kind of explore them. But we live in a world now where sometimes you can't even ask the fucking questions, like without repercussions of some sort. Yeah. So I've sat on those episodes, and then I went to like finish the episode, and then we just like kind of doubled down on everything on the next one. And then it was toward the end, we were like, man, we should do a fucking podcast. Or I was like, you should do a podcast. And then he hits me up like a day later. He's like, "Do you want to do a podcast?" And I was like, "Sure." I don't know what we'll fucking talk about, but all right. And then we ended up adding Jackie, who like works for like Metal Blade and some other companies or other labels. So it's like all three of us are in different facets of music industry, and we all love weed. So it's called the Green Room, and we usually just smoke and bullshit.
Oh God, I want to be on it.
So it's funny, like, you know, like one of our episodes is like, when is it okay to socially beat a woman? But it's like you have a black man, a woman, and then me. And at one point, like, it just goes off the rails.
Yeah, it just goes completely off the rails.
Yeah, and then it's like the one I do with Chris and Rush is like completely different. And like and then even doing this show, it's like there is some carryover because it's how can it not be? Because I'm a part of each one, but they're all completely different. And there would have been a time where I'm like, man, I don't know, like. I don't know that you can compartmentalize shit like that, but it's funny. Like now I have 3 projects going, and I'm like, well, this is kind of this thing, and this is this thing, and like this is its own thing.
Sure.
And something I like have been in doing that, I've really become fascinated with the roles. Like I play in each of those shows, where like this, like I'm kind of front and center. The Green Room, I'm probably like third, like I'm in the back seat, like just kind of watching everything and then chiming in on occasion. And then I'd say I'm an equal third of the show with Rush and Chris. But it's interesting because like I am all those people, but I kind of have to learn where I sit and where I fit. And I feel like it's the interesting thing. And here's where the question kind of comes for you. Have you noticed that same thing of like the different roles that you kind of play and are obviously aware of them as they're happening in all these projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, that question brings me back to like talking about Still Remains with you before and how kind of jaded I was. And it's really because Still Remains is its thing. Right. It has like a very established identity, and we don't really go outside of that. And I feel like this constant need to express myself in different ways. And I just can't do that just with that project. Like, I'm limited, really. Hey, Bubba. My cat is crazy. He's such a shit. You get down. But, so, like, I kind of feel a little limited with Still Remains, with some, like, just the music that we write. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I think Still Remains just kind of pigeonholed into a spot. I mean, and I don't mean that disrespectfully toward the guys at all that write the music whatsoever, but they have their thing that they do. You know, it's heavy, it's thrash, it's melodic, and that's what it is.
And I don't want to cut you off, but like I just had a thought that I want to throw out to you. Have you now, all these years later, having all the time spent with them, and I would even say now having a different relationship with everyone because of how old you are and the lives you all have separately, have you come to realize that potentially that's why everyone likes this thing, because now it is that outlet for that thing for all of them?
I mean, that could potentially be something, you know. I think you might be onto something with that, but it's really in my mind anyway, it's just because that's where, I mean, if you look at the core of where the music comes from, Jordan and AJ, that's where those guys are. That's right where they are. That's where they remain. That's just where they've always been. You know what I mean? And they've been in that spot writing that kind of music that they've just gotten better and better at it. You know what I mean? And so with that band, I mean, we're gonna do what we're good at, and that's where we're at. You know what I mean? And that's cool. That's really cool. I mean, it's super fun. You know what I mean? It's super fun. It is an outlet, but it's also kind of limiting. It's like I personally, as a singer or as just an artist in general, feel like I just need more than that. Like I've, you know, a lot of Still Remains material can be kind of poppy at times, really catchy choruses and things like that. And, you know, me with the life circumstances I'm in that I spoke to you about it just a few minutes ago, like I need to be able to express myself and express those kinds of things, because those are the things that are attacking me mentally, just constantly. And so when I'm presented with a song that is super catchy, I mean, it's great, thrashy, dancey, whatever, I don't, like, I can't, like, pull from the spot that I really feel this need to pull from to write that song. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I hope that the Still Remains material that I will be presented with soon will be more pissed, or, you know, less melodic, you know, heavy as fuck. Like, that's what I'm hoping for. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But, like, if I venture outside of Still Remains and I look to Glassfield, or I'm looking to the Dead Me stuff, like, I have the freedom to pull from whatever I want and just channel it into this music. It's not as free, and I've tried to do it with Still Remains, and I have done it with Still Remains, but it almost hasn't felt quite right.
First thing that comes to mind when you say that, and I don't know if it's just because of how far into the discography it is, so it maybe feels like that's why it stands out to me, but like Bare Your Teeth. Like, I feel like maybe that's sort of like in the direction of like what you're in the vein of what you're saying, where it's like it wasn't really poppy. It kind of just is very like beating you over the fucking head. Like,
yeah, that, or like Close to the Grave, or like even, I mean, hell, there were some really, really, really old songs that Still Remains did that were, I mean, they were a lot simpler. We were a lot younger, but there was a song like way back in the day. I don't even know if the guys remember this. It's called Cole Harder. It was super cool. It was taken from this kid that I read about in a news story. Had a violent thing with his parents or something like that. It was a pretty fucked up story. But like that was a song that had a lot of like ring chords, you know what I mean?
panic chords.
Yeah. And it was just nastier, you know what I mean? But that's the kind of metal that I like. You know, like, I love the new End track. Did you hear that? Like, that's, I mean, if I had a choice to be in, you know, to play a certain type of metal, it would be like that, or like Converge, or you know, just the nastier, more complex emotional shit. You know what I mean? The darker shit. And Still Remains isn't really that band. We've touched on some darker things. I mean, when Zach writes songs, Zach writes darker things, I think, moodier things that I've been able to connect to a little bit better. But Still Remains is an animal, man. It's a tough animal, and we do our thing, we do it well, and it's great. But I do struggle sometimes to connect with some of the songs.
I have kind of two things, and it kind of feels like the conversation when I ask these questions will kind of be done because we've touched so many different things. So the first question, I guess. I've been talking to a lot of different people, like, you know, now that the internet exists and like we can kind of be more connected to on a global sense than we ever really have been. It's funny because sometimes I'll mention bands, or like like Billy Talent's a great example. Like, people will be like, "Who the fuck's Billy Talent?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, here in the States, that's the vibe. Like, no one knows who the fuck Billy Talent is. Everywhere else in the world, they're fucking massive. Like, you know, basically when you see like those big festivals, they're right at the top of the fucking bill, like almost headlining or like direct support for the headliners, like on most of those. So there becomes this sense that it gets really interesting to see how differently geographically music is taken and appreciated or whatever. You're probably the first person that can probably speak to this, where it's like, I would say here, you know, if you guys were to do it to where I'm assuming that most of it would be like pyramid scheme size, basically, unless it's like maybe like out in LA or like bigger pockets, but it's like probably looking at like 600 cap rooms is what I would assume, possibly.
If it was back in 2008, I would say yeah. I mean, now, just because there hasn't been much new music and we haven't toured at all, I mean, I don't know if we would even get booked. You know, like,
fair enough.
I mean, we would potentially be in smaller rooms.
But what I was going to say
but
is...
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so like the thing is, though, is like you go overseas, though, and like you've always been bigger over there.
Yeah.
How is that? How was it, and how is it like to know that like we're fucking big somewhere else, but like not even in our own backyard, but like it's the career trajectory is just totally different.
You know, that plays into the complexities of my feelings to the band. I think that signing to Roadrunner Records was great for us internationally, and it's because there were so many amazing people internationally that believed in us and really worked hard for us and pushed us, and we were able. Metal is just way more appreciated. The style of metal that we play is more appreciated overseas. It was easier to get on great tours over there and things like that. So it was awesome. It was the coolest thing ever. Here, though, I felt like, the label, it's almost like they don't really look at the music, they just look at the money. And that's just kind of typical for America anyway. They don't look at substance, they just look at money. That's it. So when we were signed, they just put all the cards on Trivium. And fine, Trivium obviously is incredibly talented, and they've made a huge name for themselves, and they probably made the label a lot of money. Whereas a band like Still Remains, and I could be at the fault of this as well, like is for when they look at a band, they go to see you live, and they look at the front man and they go, is that guy going to make me money? Like, how is he? Like Matt is very versed. Matt Heafy, he's very versed. And I could be wrong in this. I don't know if he rehearses what he says between songs for every night and things like that. But he's got his go-to things. And for me, because I'm just, like I said, I'm a depressive. I'm ADHD, and I'm just really kind of all over the place. I, as an artist, want to be able to do what I'm feeling in the moment, because I want it to be honest, I want it to be true, I don't want it to be rehearsed at all. I just want to be me. That's it. I just want to be me. If the music or the songs or the show is loved, I want it to be loved because it was honest, and not because it was just something that we fucking threw together for a bunch of money, and that we sure, we're going to rehearse our songs, we're going to want to perform those well and play those well as musicians, but anything other than that, I see extreme value in just the chaos of it all, and just the chaos of just being, honest in your personality and where you're at emotionally. I mean, when we would tour, I would have nights where I was super fucking stoked, and you could tell. I would have nights where I was super bummed or just super pissed, but those shows were great because they were so intense. You know what I mean? So they were just in a different way. So I think that maybe when the label would come to look at us play live, they might not see the monetary value in something like that, coming from a vocalist. And that could have been part of the reason why we weren't quite as successful. I'm not much of a performer. You know what I mean? I consider myself more of just an artist, or just a human. So that could have been, part of our downfall in the U.S.
It's just always interesting to kind of see that, because it's I can't really think of many other forms of entertainment where it's like that. Obviously in movies, it's that one, was it fucking Skyscraper or something like that with The Rock? That's when you watch it, I remember my wife being I don't remember this movie coming. I was oh, I mean, it came out here. It didn't do well, quote unquote. I go, but you watch this and you can tell this isn't a movie for American audiences. This is a movie for overseas to do well internationally. Yeah. And she was well, why do you say that? I was outside of The Rock and maybe one, his family in the movie, I was there's no fucking Americans in it. It's all Asian people, and they're in Japan or something. And I was this clearly isn't a movie for the American audience. Yeah. And I was and you just, I mean, when you start breaking down demographics and stuff, you start noticing shit like that in art, and you're just oh, okay, this is catering to this, or, they probably were yeah, we'll put it out in the States, rack up whatever money it will generate, but the goal is internationally, we want to hit blank amount, and potentially they probably got a shitload of funding from somewhere over there as a tax break or something, I don't know. And so I don't know, when you start learning more of the facets of stuff like that, you're just you can kind of see through some of it for what it really is. Yeah. But it's interesting just to kind of think about, what does it look like from the person who has to make the thing or be a part of it, and then be just thinking about how you have kind of two separate careers simultaneously, where it's man, we're fucking popping over here. In our own backyard, not so much.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. It totally does, especially from a musical standpoint as well.
Yeah. Because I feel like it couldn't not inform what you're like, especially. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about the Serpent as whatever, however they feel about it, but it's like I feel like when you listen, like I remember when like Stay Captive and other songs, it's like it leaned more heavier on like the synth and the like keys and stuff like that, and being a little more like poppier, and the mix was different and stuff like that versus Love and Lunacy, and I was like, oh, this is a Still Remains record, but I feel like this is the one that's gonna hopefully catapult them to another level overseas, not so much here.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think that's a normal way to like listen to an album where you're like, oh, I understand what this is from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Why, like, not saying you did it for that reason, but I understand why it probably leans that way.
Sure.
And most people will probably here in the States like, oh, I don't get this because it's not what I listen to. And you're like, okay, cool.
It wasn't the last record.
Right. Yeah. And then, well, everyone's always fucking behind on everything anyway. Everyone always wants, because like no one likes to be challenged. No one likes to be uncomfortable.
That's true.
And that's
true.
where the growth happens.
Yeah, that is where the growth happens, and I can attest to that too. Saying that I hope the next Still Remains stuff is heavier and whatever else. But honestly, when I do think about it, like I think I'm going to be pretty stoked on whatever it is at this point because with the other projects, I am able to channel the things that I really want to say. And if Still Remains isn't going to be the avenue to talk or to really like...
Well, now it's not the sole avenue.
Right, it's not the sole avenue. So, I mean, if the Still Remains material that I get isn't material that really connects to my grief or the anger that I'm experiencing about X, Y, or Z, I know that I'll be able to channel those feelings into one of the other projects. Or I currently already am. So, I mean... I Merlin, get off John, you little shit. I'll be excited either way, I think.
So the last question I kind of had for you was, obviously Still Remains having been a thing that you did as basically a kid, still at like high school, to now, how, and especially now that you're like prepping for like these couple of shows, have you thought, or has it happened in any of the times that you guys have done, like the couple of one-off shows or whatever, even like the European tour, have you had a moment, or even as all the guys talked about how the band has changed for you all? Like, what is it, like what it means playing these songs that you wrote as kids and now being in your 40s and so forth, having kids, homes and mortgages and all that? Like, have you thought about how like it's changed for you, or has it?
I don't really recall having too many conversations like that with the guys. To be honest, I don't see them much at all. We don't really we don't really ever hang out, and it's not because we don't like each other or anything. I mean, we got together for lunch here a few weeks ago and it was great, but we're just all busy. AJ's finishing up a huge project. He's a geologist. He does some traveling, things like that. My work and kids and other projects are busy. Jordan's really busy with Kill the Lights right now, and he's got a really great thing going on with his job, and so come on, buddy, come here. Okay, there you go. Sorry, my cat is just insane. But we're just all busy. We're just all really busy. Zach's got a really young little boy at home and things like that, but I'm sure those conversations probably will happen at times as we get to spend more time together. We've got these couple shows coming up, and I'm sure there will be more eventually, and more music and things. So we just need to get back in a room together. Honestly, like we haven't practiced as a band for probably a good 4 or 5 years. I mean, we played that like Skeletones reunion show at the Intersection, and really I want to say that was probably the last time we were all in a room with amps on playing. It's just been so long.
I just think the idea of like it's familial in the sense that like it's a thing and you can come back to it, but like when you come back to it, what is it like? Does it change or manifest into something different each time you come back to it because of just growing as people?
I don't know if it changes. Sometimes it's really refreshing. It can be like getting back in the room, turning the amps on. As many times as like you play the songs, and you kind of get sick of them. When you get a break for a few years, and then you come in, and the amps are warming up, and you hear the feedback, and, you know, it's regardless of whatever song it is that you're going to play, like, it's just that, like, it's really nostalgic, and it's a good feeling, because we had so much fun playing so many shows and things like that. I don't know if the songs take on a new meaning, or they may even, like, lose their meaning a little bit. Like, some of the songs, I don't even remember what I wrote them about. I just don't. Like, I don't connect to them. I don't listen to them. I don't really think about them too much anymore, you know? But it sure is fun to get in there and turn the amps on.
It's always, I mean, now in, 2023, I mean, fucking the Dice Today is getting back together. Like, I just had Brooks on. That'll drop tomorrow.
Nice.
Recording.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
He's
super
awesome.
great. And it was funny is, like, we kind of did something similar, like, talking about, like, because he basically, like, I get, being almost 40 at this point, talking about people existing before the internet. So it's like, dude, he left the band. Yeah. And, like, I think maybe there's MySpace, but it's like, he wasn't on social media, like, he kind of, and then didn't really adopt any of the other shit, and was, like, out of the public eye. And so you're just like, what the fuck you been doing? Where have you been? Yeah. And then even us having more of a local connection to it through Jason, it's like, we talked about just kind of like, what's it like leaving a thing and then seeing it go on without you, and now you're back, and then you left, and now it's back again, and people care, and, like, all this shit. And
Billie Eilish.
yeah, like, I think I had the first thing he's done since that happened, which we talked about it for, like, fucking 2 seconds. But it was just kind of funny, like, talking about that. But, and, like, I can't wait for people to be, because, like, people are hitting me up as soon as I posted, and they reposted that I posted, like, I did it. People are like, where's this at? I want to hear it. I'm like, it's not out for, like, another week. And then, but I think what's going to be so funny is, like, for, like at one point I was drinking a high noon. He's like, you drinking a nooner? And I was like, yeah. And then we just started talking about drinking, and then it just developed straight up into like full on Buffalo stuff, where I'm like, yeah, man, like the Pink, like my wife and I go, like, we stay over here and like go to this place, and Gabe's Gate, like, for wings, and da 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 da. And I'm like, I fucking had a blast talking about it, but I'm sure people are like, well, where's the Dice Today stuff?
Yeah,
and I'll be like, fuck you, man, this was cool. We talked about, like, nerded out on Buffalo shit. Like, it'd be like if you and I all of a sudden were just like, oh man, like, Schnitz's Deli, like, I fucking love that place. I don't go ever, but, like, they have some of the best bread, like, for sandwiches in town. Like, it's fucking amazing. But, like, if we were to start delving into shit like that, people would be like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah, like the local, like, craft food and stuff.
Yeah. Get down, Bubba. But so I guess kind of last thing, where can everyone find you, or anything you would like to plug online?
I would love to plug the living shit out of Dead Me.
What's that?
I would love to plug the living shit out of Dead Me.
And what is that again?
Dead Me?
No, I'm just kidding.
Dead Me. I'm dead. Dead Me is, my new band that I've got going on. We released our first single called Empty Now a couple weeks ago. And you can look us up on Facebook, Instagram. The song is streaming on virtually every streaming service known to man, I think, pretty much. Most of them.
Someone's going to be so mad that you're not on, like, bumblebeecollector.com or something, and be like, your
probably
song's not on that.
I did everything. I put everything through DistroKid, and, they throw it out everywhere. So, we have a Bandcamp page if you want to go there and download it for free, or if you want to throw us, like, $1 or whatever. Either way, it doesn't matter to me, just as long as it's out there. We're working on getting, like, a merch store opened up online. I mean, I know that we've only got, like, one song out. There's not a lot of people that have heard it yet, or might not even care, but I want to get it rolling, so the goal is to release another song here as soon as we can. Probably, I'd say, like, within the next 2 months at the longest, hopefully. Waiting for Matt to come home, and then we're going to wrap one of them up vocally. He's out with Norma Jean right now in California for a fest or whatever. So if you guys see, if anybody is in California or going to see Norma Jean here, I think it's like next week.
It's going to be out for a few weeks, so they'll definitely, that'll already happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, if you saw Matt, hopefully you gave him a high five and a big kiss and said, hey, your Dead Me shit is sweet. But yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. You can add me on Facebook or add the band, and I'm trying to engage with people a lot. So if you got questions,
it's a whole nother job.
It is a whole nother job. I mean, it's a ton. So if anybody wants to reach out and talk and get to know the band or whatever, just shoot me a message. We'll talk about it.
Sounds good. Thank you again for inviting me into your home and doing this.
Thanks for inviting me onto your podcast.
So that was my conversation with TJ Miller. I want to thank him again for inviting me into his home to do this. It's been kind of fun doing some of these in person. He was one of the, Landon Tours from Plot and You was one of the first ones I did since the pandemic in person. This is probably the first in person, not at a venue I've done, I think, ever. Trying to think back to like 400 plus episodes. I think this is literally one of the first ones I've ever done not in my own home if it's been an in-person and not at a venue. So that was a little bit different and interesting. And, it's kind of funny to be the away team of sorts. I think it puts you as the person, or I should say me as the person doing these, it's a little bit more comforting when you're on your home turf and you're in your own environment versus being the person coming into it. But I do think it's kind of interesting to let the person who you're talking to kind of have that. I do feel like maybe it allotted for TJ to be a little more open with some of the questioning and answers as what we had discussed. And something I think that was better about this one than before, and like I said, is I feel like he is just, actually both of us are, like I said in the intro, are just in better spaces, I think. We understand more who we are and what we do. I think before, when I had him on the podcast, I was more focused on trying to steer an episode into what I thought people wanted, trying to discuss things about people that maybe the fans of that person didn't know. So like started with Porter and knowing that he was into photography, TJ, getting into cosmetology and stuff like that back in the day. And I just realized sometimes like some of those conversations were interesting and the foundations of what this show could be and became, I think were there, but I think I was too dead set on making something happen and steering it in a way that I wanted to versus just kind of literally letting a conversation happen. And I also think that to a degree, for lack of a better term, I was still kind of starstruck, I think, with some of these people. Like, to me, I never really knew TJ as a not musician person who toured. That's how I was introduced to them, through mutual friends. And it was a thing where I did the thing. I was a fan of, I fanboyed to a degree on these people. And I didn't look at them as just people who happen to have extraordinary, professions. And so I think this is a way better conversation. And I think honestly is why I also don't like getting rid of any of the old episodes, however bad I may feel about them, because I think just like music, I think it is a time and place in our lives and it's a snapshot of it. And it's a thing that, like, if I were to go back and listen to it, I probably would be like, oh man, I remember where I was at that point in my life. I remember what I was doing. Just like maybe a song from the first, of Love and Lunacy, or even any of the earlier EPs and stuff that Still Remains put out, What If Love Was Born to Die and so forth, that like I'm sure people would hear those songs and be taken right back to where they were and some of the memories associated with those things. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing as you do something in a creative space, is to understand that you were that person and that you can still be that person for a lot of others, but that you've grown and changed, hopefully, for the betterment of yourself and for those around you. And I think it really showcases the growth of TJ, more importantly than myself, but I think the two of us. And like I said, having talked about TJ on the other podcast and kind of looking at it through the prism of like 10 years later and having more of an understanding, especially with what we were conversing about, I think it was a really interesting way to bring him into the fold on this. And like I said, he was just kind of someone in something that we were discussing, and has peripherally been someone in my life that I've been like, we should probably do this again. We should have a conversation again. And interestingly, I ended up losing the episode I was talking about. Something happened with the file. I don't know what happened. I saved it. It just fucking gone. And so, interestingly, we've talked about going back since it didn't need to be released. No one knows what we're doing or what we're discussing, that since we're going to do it in a seasonal format, that I think the thing we're going to do to just kind of really bring and showcase a different side of things is we're actually going to bring TJ onto that show, and he'll be probably the first and I would assume only guest we're going to have on season 1. of the Bar podcast, and that we are going to kind of have him offer his take on things that we were discussing, because all we were able to do was just kind of bring up the situation that I had discussed about, what is a name worth and all that. And that was about as far as I could take it. He can push it into a different into a different setting than the three of us know, and can really, I think, paint a fuller picture and offer a more interesting, well-rounded discussion of the devaluation of art and music and creativity. So I'm very much looking forward to bringing him into the fold for that, and kind of picking his brain a little bit about it in conjunction to everything that we were discussing, and essentially, I think, making a better version of the episode and what we were aiming to do. Like I said, it's kind of the fun thing of sort of having a few different facets in how you can articulate yourself in a creative medium, because you're not pigeonholed into like, well, this is this thing and this is this thing and this becomes this thing. So I really hope, listening to this and this episode specifically, that I hope that potentially if you're feeling stagnant creatively or in some facet of your life, because you feel like it's not who you are, who you are supposed to be in that, I would challenge you to maybe find something else that makes you able to express that, because I do feel that it allows you to really kind of become a more well-rounded person and learn more about yourself, but also to just have that outlet maybe that you're missing currently. So whatever it is, seek it out, and maybe you'll find that it's not something that you want to pursue even. And I think even in that, it's a great learning experience for you. I always advocate trying to find anything that makes you happy and that you're passionate about. Explore. It is where we grow as people, is in the unknown and the uncomfortable. All that said, I'm going to kind of start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with TJ Miller, you can find him on Instagram at TJ Miller, because there is, obviously another TJ Miller that exists, who is also famous, and he has that handle. Facebook, if you would like to keep up with Still Remains, you can find them at facebook.com Still Remains, Instagram at Still Remains, and Twitter at Still Remains, or you can go to www.stillremains.us. They have those upcoming reunion shows with Haste the Day. I don't think any of them are officially sold out as of when I'm doing this. But if you're able to go to those shows, hella jealous. Would love to see the dudes, and hoping that there will be a hometown show. The last handful of hometown reunion shows have been absolutely bonkers. So it's always a great time to see those guys playing just classic songs, especially here for us in the Grand Rapids area where it all started for them. If you'd like to keep up with Glassfields, you can find them at Facebook at Glassfield Band, Instagram at Glassfield_band, and I didn't find them on Twitter, so I don't think they have one. And Dead Me, they do have a Facebook page. It's a little bit tricky to do that. I was going to put the link in the show notes, but it's not been claimed as a Dead Me, facebook.com/Dead Me. It's like a whole profile with a bunch of numbers and stuff. So just look on Facebook for Dead Me. It's like dead.me. Or if you follow TJ on any of the socials, his socials or whatever, you will be very quick to find Dead Me and Glassfield stuff. He's tagging it as much as he can. You can also go to Dead Me Band on bandcamp.com. They have a track, Empty Now, that's out now. You can, pay what you want for it. But obviously with it being a independent thing, I would recommend throwing a couple bucks at it to help fund the future of the band and more releases to come out. And for the podcast, if you'd like to keep up with us, it's simple enough. BrewSpeakPod on all your major social media platforms. You can email me at brewtallyspeaking@gmail.com, where you can, carry on the conversation from an episode. You can recommend upcoming guests if you would like to hear someone on the show. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you can on whatever platform you are listening to this on. I know there's lots of variable things that you can do on all the different apps. So whatever you are able to do in whatever capacity, go ahead and do that. It would be greatly appreciated. I want to thank our sponsors for their continued support. Rockabilly.com. Go over there, use our code BREWtally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. I want to thank them for their continued support, as well as Starving Artist Brewery, two companies that are just have become really good friends, honestly. And that's been the incredible thing about all the podcast sponsors I've had on currently and in the past. Everyone essentially has become homies and really is inspiring to help support other people who do just incredible things in various spaces. And honestly, that's all I could ever ask for when doing this. So if you are able to support them in whatever capacity you are able to, even if it's just a like or a follow on various social networkings, I'm sure they would be greatly appreciative of it. And for the Brewtally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I will see you all next week, where our guest is Mike Maines of Mike Maines and the Branches. That was a really, really great chat, really raw and honest, and is another artist that is technically from here in Michigan, a little bit kind of out of the realm of what we typically have on the show, but I think showcases a lot of why I love branching out, so no pun intended, into different genres and styles of music, and just having guests on that I think are really interesting. And this chat was really awesome and was one I was really looking forward to having, and it lived up to the expectation and then some, and I'm really excited to get that one to you. So until next week, I will see you. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll chat next time.